Okay, and I'm back. And we're not live because this is a VOD. So, the first part of the video concluded a wrap-up of Bomber's kind of unique TvT approach to this match using Biotank. He essentially takes the aggressive third base and kind of has siege tanks defend it over here while he uses his Bioforce over here to like kind of punch Polt in different areas of his body while like using the siege tanks to like block him. It's like a wrestling match. But Polt, he just has two really strong arms, and Bomber isn't able to do much than do a couple petting jabs against Polt's body, like and then Polt just goes just one punch. Like Bomber thinks he's gonna get a good punch to the body, and Polt just twists his hand and breaks it off. That's how brutal this game was. And now let's see how Polt set that up. Spawning in that. Nope, I already did that. Can't do it a second time. So, Polt going for a Reaper expand. Reaper expands are very standard because you get a lot of information with the Reaper, first of all. You can basically get a guaranteed scout of what the Terran player is doing if they're going for a fast gas, if they're going for Cloak Banshees, if they're going for a Marine Helling Drop, if they're going for a Reaper expand, if they're going for Reactor Hellions, if they're going for a 14cc. Basically anything. Whatever it sees, you know, like you know what the Terran player is doing if you go for a Reaper expand. That's why Polt does it, to get the maximum amount of information. So, Polt, he plays a very standard game, and even Bomber kind of played a slightly cheesier game because he got a fast third command center and got fast double upgrades. But we're going to see how Polt's super standard play is able to triumph over Bomber's slightly more unorthodox play style. So if you want a player to copy, then definitely copy Polt and copy all of his decision makings that we're going to see here, and copy his build, copy his haircut, copy the kind of glasses he wears, copy that smile he always has on his face because he's never disappointed. He never loses a game ever. Actually, he does lose some games, but he never loses a best of 3 ever. That's why he has a smile all the time. So just like copy everything he eats. Like send him a message on Facebook, ask him what he eats for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We all know the answer to that though. He eats noobs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then he eats Koreans for a snack before he goes to sleep every night. That's what keeps him healthy, wealthy, and wise. So, interesting little transition that Polt's doing. He is getting Reactor Hellions rather than Reactor Marines. And what this does is it creates ambiguity for Bomber, because Reactor Hellions could be a potential for mech play. It could also just transition into Biotank play that we see Polt do. And the Hellions also provide a good deal of map control. By having that amount of Hellions, there's nothing that Bomber can do that can really get past this kind of a defense of Polt's. He's safe against all early game aggression, and he's... Ooh, okay, this is the important part. Oh, by the way, like from Bomber's point of view, he has not scouted Polt yet. Like, he doesn't give a F about what Polt's doing. That's how much he doesn't care. And Polt, he's like, this half the map is already like lit up right now. He's already looked at the watchtower, jumped into the base. He's already seen some stuff that Bomber's doing. Okay, so Polt, he doesn't know what Bomber's doing exactly because his Reaper ended up dying. So he does end up making an engineering bay, and the scan comes at about 6 minutes and 30 seconds. I kind of rewinded it a bit too much. Okay, so there's the engineering bay. It's for the earliest time against the gas first build. And a really cool thing Polt does, and I just want to like double check to make sure he does it before I say it. But Polt scans for the Cloak Banshee timing at about 6:20. That's an important timing to check for because that's usually when a Cloak Banshee will be popping out and or researching Cloak. Okay, so right here we see Polt, he's making a turret, right? He's getting prepared for this Cloak Banshee play that's coming up. However, Bomber is making a Raven. Polt is not going to be fooled by this, because as we see in a second, not only he's making one turret, he's making 2 turrets. That's a lot of defense, especially for a Raven. Normally, I wouldn't like this, but let's see what Polt does next. Wait for it. Oh, okay. What he does now that is just insanely smart is he scans at right now, and he scans instantly. He looks at the tech lab. There's nothing researching. Bomber instantly starts the Raven energy upgrade. But Polt, he's able to, like, in the split second, it's so quick. But Polt just stares at the tech lab, and when he scans, he sees that there's nothing researching, and then Bomber instantly starts researching the upgrade, and that triggers Polt to cancel immediately those 2 turrets that he was building. So let's see if we can actually see it. Nothing. Oh my god, damn it. It's not quick enough. But Bomber instantly starts it as soon as Polt scans, but Polt he saw that there was nothing researching for a slight, like a millisecond, and instantly he cancels his turrets. You no longer see them building, and yeah, no more missile turrets. So he ends up saving 200 minerals because he's able to, like, understand that Bomber was faking cloak because he saw the tech lab on the starport, like, not researching anything for a slight second before instantly starting an upgrade. And cloak would be researching researching continuously. So that's just really cool play by Polt. He's really on top of his game. Nothing can beat him. He's going straight to the finals this year, and he's going to win it again. Captain America at its finest. And another cool thing that we see Polt do with his bunker placement at the natural, that bunker placement, what it does, please click their observer. Well, basically what that bunker does is he places it near the ramp over here, but more importantly, it creates kind of like a space over here so that Polt can more easily maneuver his siege tanks, and it allows it so that the Terran player, like Bomber, if he does a marine tank push, he is not able to siege up on that high ground where Polt's depots are, and it looks like another building appears to be as well. Like, he has a couple buildings over there, and if Bomber were to siege up there, then Polt would lose those buildings for free. So Polt builds his bunker slightly farther out, and he positions his siege tanks so that Bomber is not able to, if he does do a marine tank push, he would not be able to kill those buildings and pick them off for free, because their siege tanks would be far out enough to be covering this area and this area. These 4 Hellions for Polt, they're really just scouting information, kind of like reactor Hellions. They're not meant to kill SCVs. He doesn't want to do a drop with them. He just wants to see what's going on. It kind of forces the other Terran's hand in whether he's going for Hellions himself, if he's going for siege tanks, or if he's doing neither and doing something very wonky. So that's why, like, Polt, he was waiting there on purpose to wait for a siege tank shot. He sees there's a siege tank shot. He knows that there's siege tanks, so he knows that it's gonna be a biotank play. Just kind of like a little scouting trick. And he also, like, checks for the command center to, and, like, he also was able to see the units as well to kind of, like, check if there was gonna be a siege tank drop occurring. And FYI, this is the first time that Bomber is actually scouting on the map, like, that he's gone outside of his base to just take the watchtower away, or, like, just look at what's at the watchtower. He doesn't even take it away because of the 4 Hellions, and then he boosts over here. Like, he has not crossed the other half of the map yet. He does not know what Polt is doing, besides seeing the Reaper, besides seeing the scan, besides seeing the 4 Hellions. Okay, so there's just 1 depot there. But this positioning by Polt is extremely strong, having the bunker pushed out over here and allowing the siege tanks to be able to defend, like, move around the bunker, like, over here, and to defend this entire area relatively easily if Bomber does so decide to move out with his units. And we see here, Polt, he has both of the watchtowers, very trademark of Polt to control the watchtowers because he's a control freak. He uses the Hellions also, like, after they knew what Bomber was doing and saw that it was expand. By controlling these 2 watchtowers, he is setting himself up to safely take his 3rd base, which is going to be over there. And what Polt does, his build, he adds the 2nd and 3rd Raxes, whereas Bomber, okay, he didn't add his 3rd command center yet, but Bomber he gets a very fast stim and then a third command center. Or no, he's only getting 1 Rax and stim and then he gets a third command center. No, he already has his third command center. God damn it, what am I saying? This game is already, there's so much going on. I've already lost track of what's going on in this game. Okay, never mind about that. So Polt, so his stim, not his, like one of his upgrades, he's only able to get 1. His stim hasn't even started yet because, like, that's the tech lab that's going to create stim for him, because he got those extra Hellions out that delayed his production by 400 minerals. But in return, Polt is able to see the watchtowers. He's able to get valuable scouting information with the Hellions as well. So that's just kind of like the give and takes of what you get for making those Hellions. It's kind of like a delayed stim, a slightly later third, but what you get in return is valuable scouting information and map control. Looking at the tabs, there we go. Bomber is getting his double upgrades again. And once again, Polt, he's being very active with his Hellions. He's replaced the Hellions with the 2 Marines so that he can now scout around with these 2 Hellions to like look for different pieces of information he might be able to make useful. Just like clearing out this area, Bomber had a Marine there to scout for possible drops. So he's just, so like, these 4 Hellions have been completely worth it too. Even though they haven't really done any significant damage, they've given Polt a lot of information to work with here. Now, I think these Hellions are sadly gonna... Nope, Polt ends up evacuating them as well. Like, he does not want them to die. He doesn't care if he gets like 20 SCVs with the Hellions. He just doesn't want them to die. Because they're so fast, they provide valuable scouting information, and they're also very good at denying watchtowers. Like, normally, if there was just a Marine at the watchtower, then Bomber could send like 2 Marines, and then you have to send 3 Marines, and then Bomber has to send 3 Marines, or 4 Marines, or whatever. But by having the Hellions, Bomber can't do that because they're just going to die. And Bomber's going to have to send like 8 Marines with the medevac, 8 plus Marines with the medevac to deal with the 4 Hellions with the watchtower, the little watchtower brush that hides the visibility of the units slightly. So he's going to get a free first shot off and instantly kill at least like 2 Marines depending on how the line is. So basically it's very ineffective for Bomber to ever even try to take the watchtowers. And that's what those 4 Hellions are accomplishing right now. That's why Polt, like, he has vision of the 3rd, he has 2 watchtowers, he has another Marine over here, he has 3 Vikings patrolling over here. So he still has, like, this Marine, it's acting as a line of sight. So, but there's no way that Bomber can drop on to Polt's main base. So like, let's take a look. Let's say a drop leaves over here, it would run into the Marine. Let's say the drop is a bit smarter, it goes the outer edges, goes all the way over here, it's gonna run into the Vikings and die. Let's say he's even smarter and Bomber knows that there's Vikings there. Well, he goes here, he's gonna run into the Marine, and anything in between, he's gonna run into the watchtower range as well. So Polt, he has vision of every single possible area where Bomber could sneak in some sort of medevac drop. So Polt, he doesn't need any defense right now in his main base because he knows that he's 100% safe. That's what having good map control does for you. It kind of like just allows you a lot more freedom moving around with your units. Now we see Polt, he's just moving up here. His goal is not to do a lot of damage. It's just to move up in range of the sensor tower, to pin Bomber's army back, and to also take this 3rd base. The advantages of going over here rather than over here is that if he sieges up over here, Bomber can just move his army over here, and now he's outpositioned Polt, and he's just moved around to the siege tanks. By being over here and having this watchtower, Polt sees everything that's coming out, and there's no way that Bomber can move around and go over here until Polt gives up this positioning, which he does to start shelling away at the 3rd base over here. Ooh, those siege tanks. This is such good play by Bomber. Like, you can't expect this to happen in a lot of TVZs. Oh, I think that Hunter Seeker missile actually killed the Raven. LOL. Alright, so now Polt, he's like, I smell blood in the water. He wants to do some economic damage over here, and I mean, who wouldn't? It's such a juicy area. It's very tempting to do. However, that was kind of part of Bomber's plan, because as a result of that, now Bomber is able to send his squad of Marines past this area and start to wreak havoc on this side of the map, because Polt has given up that little choke area, and now there's one area where Bomber's army can move freely. And we can see now Bomber, he's getting ready to move his Marines. Polt, he's setting up some turrets over here. He's actually setting up turrets all over the map, mostly because he's moving his Vikings away, so he's going to build some turrets over here. He's building, I believe, 4, and then he's going to build another 2 at the third base. So these are just zoning out turrets. They're designed to just shut down medevacs, kill them out so that the Terran player can't escape with the units. Like, he has to commit fully if he's going to drop the Marines, and then the Marines are going to die. They're not designed to kill the medevac before they drop units. They're designed to kill the medevac after they drop the units, so that the units in the medevac cannot escape away. And that's why Polt is only building 6 right now. He has 4 over here, and he has 2 over there, I believe. Now Bomber, he's taking advantage of Polt sieging up over there at the third base, and this is a really good move by Bomber. Polt's actually in a lot of trouble, but Bomber ended up overstimming in that engagement, unfortunately. He's engaging over here, the SCVs, he's taking a lot of damage, and his army still wins. He wasn't able to snipe the third base because Polt's Marines kind of had him pincered along with the SCVs, so Polt was able to save the third base. It's very important to do that. Polt, not Bomber. I almost said Bomber twice. So what Polt is doing, he's killed all the SCVs at the third and stopped mining. Now Bomber, he's also done the same, so he's equalized the situation up by taking advantage of the positioning that Polt's siege tanks have to go in to really attack that third base and start to deny mining from it. So Bomber has basically equalized the game. Now here, Bomber, he's kind of starting to move out now. Oh yeah, this is the part where he just kills this army because Polt no longer has a lot of units left. So that's a very good job by Bomber. And now some would say that he is in fact ahead. He has plenty of money. He has his third base secured once again. He's established a strong defensive positioning outside of his third base. However, if we look on the minimap, Polt has 3 Vikings over here. He has a Marine still over here. He has another Marine over here. He has another Marine over here, has the watchtower, another Marine over here as the watchtower. He has another Marine over here to act as a spotter, and he has 4 turrets now instead of Vikings for anti-doom drop defense for his main base. So, although Polt has lost a chunk of his army, and he is down almost 30 supply, he has really good map vision. This is his vision, yeah, this is just his vision alone. And as you can see on the map, he basically has he almost has every single part of the map lit up. It's pretty impressive to see how strong he is in being able to control map vision. If you went to a TvT replay, went to 17 minutes, or whenever you're on 3 bases and 2 upgrades, and just looked at your map and compared it to this picture, there's going to be a huge difference, I guarantee you, of how much vision you have compared to how much vision Polt has on the map. I can't stress enough how important these little spotter Marines are out on the map and what they're doing in terms of vision for Polt. He's able to see this drop coming. Well, he doesn't really see that drop coming per se. Actually, he might. Let me rewind it. See what's going on. I think Bomber goes in range of the tower, and Polt ends up moving his tanks to get some shots off on the Marines. And that's step 1 to prevent, he was able to get some free shots off, really weaken those Marines, and it makes that force a lot less formidable. Yeah, so basically Polt saw as soon as Bomber moved his Marines over there and started moving over here, he saw that, so he repositioned his siege tanks because he knew that Bomber would be walking across this area. Or if you walked across over here, it would take a lot longer. But walking across here is quicker, so that's why Bomber is doing it. And that's why Polt can anticipate something like that. And he repositions his siege tanks and is able to get a couple extra shots off. Because of his insane map vision, he knows exactly where Bomber's army movement is. So now he knows Bomber has like 40, 30, I don't know, a lot of Marines and 4 medevacs worth of units out on the map. And like Polt has this watchtower. He sees exactly what Bomber's army's doing. Like, it's just ridiculous. The kind of map hacks that Polt is playing with right here. These watchtowers. And like seeing this army move from like this watchtower to over here means that Bomber's like repositioning his army. And Polt probably sees these siege tanks also slightly out of position, like at the very edge of the watchtower view. And as a result, like he instantly takes advantage of that and picks off 1, 2, 3, 4 siege tanks for a handful of Marines. And that's the kind of engagement you want in this TvT matchup, is to pick off those siege tanks with Marines, so that you can establish a stronger positioning with your siege tanks, or with your higher siege tank count. Boom Bear over here, he's going in, he's gonna threaten with the Doom Drop. Polt, he has a Marine over here, so he spots it instantly. Like, okay, this time Bomber has the watchtower, and he kind of like had vision, so Polt didn't see the army come until now. But seeing the army come now rather than like over here gives you a lot of heads up, and like it allows Polt to reposition all of his Marines and some of his siege tanks. And now Polt, like, he goes into his main base in case Bomber does a Doom Drop. He also goes over here as well, and like he's also prepared obviously to defend this area because he has Marines on both flanks ready to stim in and protect those siege tanks. Now Bomber kind of moves back because he found out that, or Polt scanned, so he knew what he was doing, and immediately Polt's replacing this Marine. Like, he had a Marine. Okay, so he has a Marine over there. We're just gonna keep an eye on that Marine next to the mouse cursor. We see that Bomber is going. Splat, that Marine didn't stand a chance. He's no Superman. Now Polt, the first thing Polt does, he repositions his siege tanks. The second thing Polt does, he repositions his Marines so that there's Marines in his main base ready for a Doom Drop, and there's Marines over here in case Bomber decides to fly over this siege tank line, or he decides to push out. So the Marines are reinforcing both of those siege tank areas. And now the third thing that Polt does, he sends a Marine over here. Like, he's just sent it over here. There it is. There's a little poor fella. And what that does, like, he immediately sends it to replace that fallen Marine comrade. And he gets so fortunate. Like, Bomber was not expecting this at all. And this is what makes Polt such a better player than Bomber in terms of positioning and TvT, is why he was able to take the game 2-0. Because, like, sending a Marine here, he sees this entire drop load up. So now he's like, oh, there's a Doom Drop coming. And, like, once again, Polt has entire vision of, like, he only lost vision for like less than 5 seconds. Like, and he still has a scan, so he technically has vision of everywhere on his side of the map. So, okay, right here, like, if we take a look here, like, once again, on the minimap, he has lost this watchtower, but he has this Marine here, he has a Marine here, he has a Marine here, he has another Marine. No, those are the 2 Vikings over there. But he still has 4 Marines out on the map, providing him very important scouting information. And, like, he replaces this as soon as the scan dies, so he hasn't even lost any, he doesn't have any dark spots in his radar. And as a result, he's able to see these medevacs coming in. There's literally nowhere Bomber can go to kind of like hide these medevacs. Bomber's still going to like try to go in just in case Polt didn't see it or he isn't able to react fast enough. But Polt, he's on top of his game. Stims immediately, counters these medevacs. Bomber has to move away before his boost wears out, and a Doom Drop averted. Just really, really good play by Polt there. And map control is dominating this game. These Marines are basically map hacks. They're all map hackers. Like, if you go into the TL map hacking thread, all of these Marines, all of their StarCraft 2 account names are map hackers, I guarantee you, or all the ones that are over there. Like they're not part of this individual game. They brought their portable laptops. They're logging onto BattleNet. They're loading up their hacks. They're just playing against some easy scrubs on ladder, and they're just like using their map hacking cheats. They don't even care what's going on right now. Anyways, Polt. So now he knows that like now he knows that Bomber's army is in this area because he still has complete vision over here. So now that he knows that his army is over here, Polt knows that Bomber's army is over here, he moves his siege tanks forward because now it is safe to do so. So his siege tanks are over here, and now he's moving them forward. Okay, so this is the Doom Drop, and like his siege tanks are very well positioned. They're very well spread out to zone out and cover as much area as possible. And now, as soon as he stops this, he's gonna unsiege his siege tanks. If we look on the minimap, those 3 little dots, and he's gonna bring them over here in a little bit. But like basically, he secured this area, and the next base for him to take is this 4th base. So what he wants to do is to bring these siege tanks over here to help defend the 4th base and to prevent Bomber from dominating this area of the map with his very big marine force. So please move those siege tanks. Okay, there we go. There we go. Movement on the map. And like Bomber, he's trying to go around over here to like do a Doom Drop into the main. That's the only reason why his army's over here. But once again, another one of Polt's map hacking marines sees this big Doom Drop force, and Bomber like he's not able to do it because Polt's marines are in the area, and if he tries to like boost forward, the medvac or the stim marines and the Vikings will just destroy Bomber's entire force. So Bomber ends up having to back out. Now Polt, he brought his 3 siege tanks forward from here to here because it's safe now, and he's going to siege him up over here as he's preparing to take his 4th base. And once again, that marine dies, another takes its replacement. These guys are like stormtroopers. There's a million of them, and it's so easy to clone. He's cloning 12 of them at a time. This trade right here, it's kind of like okay. It's not like really a win for both sides. All Polt was trying to do was to thin out Bomber's marine number as much as possible. Like just trade marines for marines. No one's really getting an edge in that. Bomber, as we can see here, he's moved his whole entire army to like this side of the map. He's posturing up to do another Doom Drop into Polt's main base, but since Polt has this positioning now, there's no way that Bomber's gonna be able to get some Doom Drops in because of Polt's vision, because of the Vikings. He even has turrets in case Polt somehow fails his insane unit positioning. So now Bomber is kind of like stuck. He is like just moving back because that Doom Drop potential had no chance. Once again, he's just like trading marines for marines, kind of like meh. I have medevac energy, why not? This is where it gets really funky though. Like so, Polt he creeps forward a little bit more with his siege tanks. To really help restrict this area and take this watchtower. He wants to kind of like have what Bomber had over here, like kind of a army outside of this area and take the watchtower to safely secure this side of the map and take his 4th base safely. What ends up happening here though is kind of like a trade-off. Bomber has 100 marines. That's a lot of marines, but he only has 5 siege tanks, and this is where siege tanks beat marines every day of the week. So Polt has 5 siege tanks and like a handful of marines. Bomber has 5 siege tanks over here. He has a bunch of marines. He loses so many marines to kill off 5 siege tanks. Like Polt, he even ran away with his medevac marine force. So like that trade-off, almost 50 marines for 5 siege tanks is never worth it. Never, ever, ever. And now Bomber's like, he thinks he's gotten a decent trade-off by killing those 5 siege tanks, and Polt's other siege tanks are currently over here, but Polt is he scans, and like he already has more siege tanks sieged up. I think this is from his reinforcements. So like Bomber scans over there, he sees like, okay, so his siege tank army must be over there. Well, he's going to try going in the middle. Immediately, Polt repositions as soon as Bomber steps into the watchtower, and he just gets surrounded. These siege tanks positioning is just insane, and the rest of the Marines blow up, and Bomber ends up losing, taking a very cost-inefficient engagement right there. And as a result, Polt cleaned up Bomber's army. Now he just moves across the middle of the map, puts a chokehold over Bomber's neck, and just snaps it in two. Because the big siege tank count, it just allows him to bully the other Terran player who does not have a big enough siege tank count. And as we see here, it's just a siege tank line breaking a smaller siege tank line. That's the perks of having a lot of siege tanks. And that's why players get a lot of siege tanks, because the more siege tanks you have, the more unbreakable your positioning can get. And now, like, there's no way that Bomber can attack into this, and it's just a slow, painful death from here. So, if we just go back a little bit, so I just want to see where those... So he has some siege tanks there. He's making 2 at a time, so I believe his reinforcements just, like, pull up over here. I'm just kind of curious to see where he adds additional siege tanks. Okay, so he has, like, 2 siege tanks over there. He has his, like, 4 or 5 siege tanks over here. So he's just like stimming forward, checking out where Bomber's army is, trying to like pick off some Marines for free. Not really doing anything. He lures him into the siege tank line, takes a couple shots off, thins it out a little bit more. And okay, so I believe there's like at least 2 siege tanks over there, and another 2 are gonna pop out. So that's where Polt gets his 4 siege tanks. So like these siege... Okay, so he leaves 1 siege tank over there. So he had 6 siege tanks over there actually. I'm like just squinting at the minimap right now. Okay, so he has 4 there and 1 on the high ground. Now he's gonna unsiege and slowly creep forward. Like Bomber, since Polt's force was over here, Bomber's like, okay, can I break this area and try to kill Polt's 3rd base? He scans. Nope, Polt has his army positioned perfectly. He has his army split up into 2 separate groups that are just perfect. And okay. He attacks. He has this 5 siege tanks here, and I'm just very curious to see where... Okay, so he has like another 4 siege tanks over here that are able to just move over here and to defend that area after he loses all the siege tanks. So if we take a look at the army, okay, so he's sending some Marines over there. He's sending the rest of his siege tanks over here. Yeah, and now he has another like 4 siege tanks positioned and ready to go. So like he just has so many siege tanks that Bomber just isn't able to trade cost effectively against these positions unless he has an equal siege tank count. So that's where those 4 siege tanks came from. That was the last question that I wanted to answer for myself. Cool. So that pretty much wraps up this video. It's going to be my last video for a little bit because I'm going to be going on vacation April 9th, and I will not be back until the 19th. So that's like next Saturday. Next Saturday. So it's going to be like 10 days of no videos, no internet, no StarCraft. So nothing I can do. Family planned it. So I will see you all soon on the other side of spring. On the better side of spring. Or here, there's still like snow just melted off yesterday. It's still cold as hell. Like it's 30 degrees in the morning still. So hopefully when I get back, it'll be like 50 to 60 degrees. I won't need a coat on everywhere. I won't freeze when I wake up in the morning and have frozen hands whenever I try to play some morning ladder games. So, yeah. I will see you guys at the end of April.